Welcome to the Weekends Overrated. It's your host, Don Dollar. Thank any and everybody who's been checking out our videos. Again, we just started the Weekends Overrated January 2026. So originally we were going to be dropping on certain days, but listen, we knew we trying to get established, so we just going to drop. We going to flood it and just take it from there. Once we get a little bit more established, we'll drop on a Monday or a Friday, so on and so forth. But we gotta establish our space within the algorithm, so to speak. So um, definitely, again, thanks for everybody. If you know me, if you don't, I appreciate checking out the videos. And if you got a YouTube account, which most people do, go ahead hit a little subscribe, like. I appreciate that. Um, so we got to kick it off with what did we learn? And today's what did we learn is a perpetual reoccurring thing that I learn the more people I come in contact with. That's why I try to stay away from people because I start to see the same things over and over, and they're exhausting. So today's what did we learn? Today's what did we learn is that ideas trump reality for, I want to say 99% of people, but I'm going to say I'm going to say 90. I'm going to leave space for 10%, even though it's probably closer to 99. So what do I mean by that? Ideas trumping reality. Individuals like to say things just for the sake of saying them, or they just like the idea of what it sounds like in their mind versus it becoming reality. And the problem with that is that we don't live in ideas. We live in the real world where real things occur. And you can stifle yourself. You can limit your growth, stunt your growth. You can really hinder your ability to grow as an individual if everything's isn't an idea. I can't even say it right. If everything's an idea, you're just putting yourself into a box, and I wouldn't say that box is full of things that again help you grow and enjoy any type of quality of life. So I think a lot of this is rooted in, I don't know, sometimes people can be fearful of, putting in the effort or fearful of following through on certain things. Um, I had it's so many examples to kind of like lean from. I'm trying to like pick one. Um, I'm trying to pick one in particular, but it'll come to me. But basically, things that require responsibility, like people will, you know, in their mind, it'll be like, this is a great idea. I should do this. Great. I'm all in. But then when it comes time to actually apply, that same sentiment, it's like a switch goes off, and then they forget everything that in their mind sounded like a great idea. Um, I'm trying to figure out. I don't really care about ruffling feathers, so it doesn't really make me no difference. So, and this isn't something that's serious. It's more so just like something more on the. It just kind of happened, and is something that kind of reminds me of this topic. But I remember I needed a ride to school. I was going back to college, and I had asked somebody for a ride, and I was about 6.5, 7 hours from where I lived before I went to school, and I had everything covered. I had the tolls, the gas, I secured the vehicle. I had all items covered, right? The only thing I needed that individual to do was to get me there. I would have helped drive, whatever I needed to do to facilitate getting me from point A to point B, I was going to do. This individual said, okay, cool. I give you a ride. We can do that, right? I asked him about, I want to say a week and a half in advance. So from the time I asked them till the morning of, I'm getting, all the things that I need to get ready to go back to school, personal items, packing, so on and so forth. It didn't take me that long, but I did things in increments throughout that time period. So fast forward, when that day came for that individual to give me a ride, uh, the phone, I called the phone, go to voicemail. That was the first time. And then I'm calling because in my mind, I'm like, okay, I know how long it takes to get there. My thought process, we leave early so that I can, go ahead, get my stuff out, get settled. And that way it's still enough time to, make it back, this way. And I probably called that individual about 20 times. No answer. So then I had someone else call the individual because at this point I'm like, I know in my mind I'm having a what did we learn moment. I know, but I'm like, you know what? What if something happened? So I have someone else call the individual. The individual answers the phone, and somebody else was like, hey, such and such trying to, get in contact with you. And the individual is like, they're just they're using very colorful language, and basically they didn't want to do it. And in my head, it was like the time in which I asked versus it being the day of we're supposed to leave. That information would have been very helpful between then. But now it's the deadline, and that individual is telling me that they don't want to do it, but they're not even telling me directly. They don't have. I don't know if it's out of fear or what. But I'm like, damn. I'm like, so it was that hard for you to just say I'm not able to do it, or simply I don't want to do it. And that's where the reality of them seeming like a reliable individual trumped no, I'm sorry. The idea of them seeming like a reliable individual was trumped by the reality of them not being a reliable individual. Because again, in their mind, it sounded great. It was like, yeah, I'm gonna help them out, so on and so forth. But when it really came time to, show up and show out, to hear that, because I could hear the phone call, and I was just like, damn, like I would have rather you just told me that, so then I could have made other arrangements. But something else that comes to mind when we talking about ideas, trumping people's reality until it's time for people to show up. Think about when the new year comes around, right? When people make all these resolutions, and rather it's losing weight, rather it's saving money. My favorite one is investing. I hear people all the time. Yeah, I'm going, I'm gonna get up with you, so on and so forth. But here's the thing. It never happens. You know why? Because the idea sounds great, but the reality is that you just wanted to stay an idea. You don't want to put in the actual work that will translate that idea to reality and actually happening. And I think a lot of it sometimes is just rooted out of fear. I think sometimes people, they just like to tell themselves things to, make themselves feel good. I don't know. I guess it's like a coping mechanism. But it's funny because this doesn't this is not applicable to all things in people's lives. It's only applicable to things that require discipline, commitment, or someone else depending on them. Things that have to do, or things that are like like solely beneficial to the individual, oh, there's no issues with that. You know, that idea and that reality, oh, they'll be like this. But that's when it's fun. That's when it's, you know, leisure. That's when it doesn't, again, require any type of commitment or discipline. So, you know, I've had, and I still have them to this day, you know, people will say, I want to do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And they never come around to actually doing those things because only thing I can estimate it to being is they like the way it sounds in their mind. Like it makes them feel good to say, yeah, I'm going to do this next year. But then next year comes, and then next year turns into the next year, and then it's just like a repetitive cycle. And you know, I try to keep those people far, far away from me, and you should too. Unless you're one of them, then you should be far away from that thought process, just because it doesn't, again, I don't think that that mentality produces anything beneficial from a growth standpoint. I don't think it allows you to grow as an individual. I feel like, you know, putting in the work is, or not necessarily putting in the work, I feel like when you say you're going to do something or you say you want to do something, I think everything's at least worth an attempt. And you know, you got to try. You don't know until you either succeed or you fail. So yeah, I mean, I had some today, some instances where I'm like, my mind immediately went to how, again, you know, ideas trump people's reality until it's time to, you know, it's time to show out, and then next thing you know, reality like, nah, sit back, we not doing that. And again, I just think that that's not the best way that, you know, you can position yourself just to grow as an individual. Because me personally, I never want to feel like I'm being stuck in my ways or just saying shit. I'm sorry, I don't know if YouTube be tripping about the cussing, but I don't want to just, you know, feel like I'm just saying things because they sound nice. You know, I like to speak with purpose and intention. So that was the what did we learn today? You know, ideas and reality. People saying things because they sound good versus, you know, what they actually will or won't do. And you'll run into these individuals, whether it's friends, family, business associates, at work, so on and so forth. But once you identify that, you know, this or these individuals are not reliable or they just say things and, you know, so on and so forth, keep your or do your best to, you know, create that distance. Wiggins overrated. I'm out. Don Dollar.